Hi everyone, welcome back to Rocks for Jocks. Today is the first time that I'm showing my face on camera, so I'm sure there's going to be some tech issues involved, and that's all right. We're going to power through it. So today we're going to be talking about some of the recent volcanic eruptions in Iceland. This is one of the most exciting things for me for a number of reasons. I love talking about interactions with people in science, and it's all happening in real time. So we can look at some news websites, we can watch some live feeds of the volcanoes, really get a good sense of what's going on here. So there's been some huge disruptions to the country of Iceland recently, which is obviously super annoying for people living there. Luckily, I don't think there have been any casualties yet, but it's going to be great for the rest of us watching and trying to learn about what's going on underneath the surface. So these eruptions have taken place near the town of Grindavík. It's kind of in the southwest of the country. It started on November 20th, and there's been kind of a sharp decline in new lava flows starting a couple of days afterwards. There were around 3,500 people evacuated from the nearby town when the eruptions began. And one thing that I thought was really cool here is that we can also, with modern technology, really see the progression of volcanic flows as time goes on. So for example, we're able to see magma flowing into the reservoirs and flowing out of the reservoirs, which then causes the land to rise and fall where that eruption is happening. And it also causes some earthquake shaking, so we can see some shaking patterns nearby that are pretty cool. This is a fissure volcano, which means it's kind of a crack in the ground and lava is flowing out of that crack. So it's not really a threat in terms of like sending giant rocks and painful lava miles in different directions. But if you obviously get really close to it, it is incredibly hot rock that will hurt you. So don't get close. The current total volume of lava that's come out of this eruption so far, as of I think November 25th, is 43 million cubic meters. Sounds like a lot, but it doesn't really mean anything to me. So I put it in nice square miles. Comes out to about 8.5 square miles, according to the Icelandic Meteorological Office. And we'll be looking at some of their articles in a couple of minutes, so it's good to cite them multiple times here. One of the most interesting parts to me personally was that the lava flows have started to get close to and interact with one of the big tourist attractions over in Iceland that we were lucky enough to see this summer, called the Blue Lagoon. So the Blue Lagoon attracts something like 1 million visitors every year. What it does is it's kind of like a warm pool of water that hundreds of people are able to go into at a time. And it's very bright blue due to some of the natural minerals that are in the geothermally heated water underneath the pool and that gets pumped up into it. Supposedly it gets filtered really well, so I'm not really sure how much of those minerals are natural versus stuff they pump into it just to make it look bluer. But regardless, it's really pleasant to sit in that human soup when it's cold outside. So even when we visited in August, it was cold enough where getting that warm pool of water was a nice break from the rest of the day. Yeah, and it also has this big resort attached to it, so it ends up being a very expensive piece of property, I'm sure. Lava flow has gotten really, really close to the resort. The lava started to overrun the parking lot, so there's some pretty sweet pictures of like cement and some of the parking signs and all of that stuff being overrun by lava, and it looks totally dystopian. But pretty cool if you're considering nobody's in danger. From our visit there, I would say that I'm not totally shocked that there are lava flows in that area. When we visited, there were giant fields of black volcanic ash for miles around the Blue Lagoon. Clearly, other eruptions have happened nearby and dumped ash there in the past. But one thing I saw about the Blue Lagoon is that it actually has volcanic defenses set up, which are these giant burns, these giant walls of dirt that have been stacked up and kind of surrounding the whole area around the Blue Lagoon. So the fact that any tourist attraction has volcanic defenses set up, I thought was pretty interesting. And basically the idea is the lava hits those giant walls of dirt and then goes around whatever attraction you're trying to defend, and then it just kind of flows into the rest of these wide open fields that don't have any construction on them. And another note is that construction in Iceland is generally pretty expensive because there's A, not a lot of labor, and B, not a lot of construction materials. A ton of their construction materials have to be imported into the country. So it's just a whole process with shipping and imports and all of that. Yeah, so as I said, so far, all of the damage from social media seems like it's just happening to the parking lot and the signage and all that stuff. But obviously, we're going to wait to see when employees are back in and opening the Blue Lagoon up again, how much damage actually happens to the resort. But the good news is that the eruption is small enough that airplanes are still flying. Airplanes are flying over the country on their way to and from Europe, and airplanes are flying into the country. More tourists are still continuing to go into Iceland. And once they land, of course, they're able to drive around and go wherever they want. The official Icelandic Tourist Office put out a statement that it's still perfectly safe to visit as long as people follow all the safety procedures. So you have this funny dichotomy of a destruction of a major tourist attraction on one hand, but on the other hand, the country itself is telling us to keep visiting because, hey, if we avoid it, we're all good. I think in the grand scheme of things, this actually made it be a little bit less disruptive than events we are used to in America. We're not used to volcanic disruptions at all, but I think this may be a little bit less disruptive than things like hurricanes or winter storms or wildfires, as it doesn't seem to be causing any major destruction to their infrastructure so far. All right, everyone. Now I'm going to try to talk a little bit about some of the maps and figures that I saw on the Iceland's Meteorological Office website, in addition to maybe some of the live streams we'll take a quick look at to see what's going on with the volcano right now. Here is a map, kind of showing a hazard map of where the volcanic eruption started and where some of the dangers continue to be. And we can see on the left-hand side, Zone 1 has lots of lava flow and gas pollution, so don't go there. After that, we start to have lower and lower tiers of hazards as of whenever this went out, I think late on November 25th. This here is a map of kind of the southwest of Iceland, the town of Grindavík that I mentioned earlier. Up next, we have what I also think is a really interesting figure. This here is showing a GPS that was placed near the spot of the eruption, so like basically right on top of where the volcano. Basically, the idea is you smack a GPS right on top of an area that you think might have some magma underneath it, and then as more magma flows into that underground reservoir, or as the magma leaves, the land where that volcano is will rise up or down depending on how much magma is currently in that underground reservoir. Long-winded way of saying we have this GPS. Is it moving up or down? Tells us if it moves up, that means there's more magma in the reservoir, which means it might be more damaging. If it moves down, that means the lava has probably already left the reservoir and it's starting to get a little bit safer. So we have three components on the screen here showing kind of north axis, east-west axis, and up and down axis. This third up and down axis is the one I want you to pay attention to for a second. From September onwards, what is happening in this chart is showing us that more magma is flowing into that underground reservoir, causing the GPS on top of it to start rising up. And we see it's moving upwards by, a couple of millimeters every few weeks. And then as we get to November, closer to the start of the eruption, it's a lot higher. And then as the eruption starts, it drops off, which means the magma is flowing out of that underground cavity and the land on top is starting to subside again. Here is the third figure I want to show you all from the Iceland's Meteorological Office as well. This here is showing the amplitude of different types of earthquake shaking waves in the area. So there's three lines in the chart. Each of them is showing waves of different frequency ranges. Basically, we're looking at different types of earthquake shaking waves. And we can tell that the strength of all three types of waves increased drastically on November 21st and November 20th, and then has been slowly decreasing since then. The reason that's important is because earthquake shaking often accompanies volcanic eruptions. Seeing the earth tremors decreasing is usually a good sign that the volcanic activity is decreasing. There was a note on the article that posted this figure, which was saying that actually this decrease is not as quickly as it's been in the past. So it's a little bit worrying. You want to keep an eye on this. Keep an eye out for earthquakes and faults opening up nearby. But as we've talked about before, not much humans can do to impact earthquakes other than just avoid them altogether. So yeah, just something interesting to keep an eye on. The last figure I thought was interesting is also from the Icelandic Meteorological Office, is this gas pollution dynamic figure here. What we have here is gas pollution that comes out of volcanoes itself. If you breathe in too much, you can suffocate and die. So don't do that. We have on this figure where the event itself is happening in the middle, and then gas pollution is being spread by whichever direction the wind's going. We have the wind direction with these gray arrows and kind of less and less dangerous gas pollution as we move along this green and gray tail in the middle. Then what we can also do is kind of zoom forward in time and see later on Wednesday and then later Thursday, the pollution from the volcano gets pushed away from populated areas, so should be good to go. The last thing I want to point out here is a couple of the live streams that are on YouTube showing some of these eruptions with cameras that these companies have set up. It's pretty cool stuff. But if we zoom back and check it out overnight, for example, we can see more and more destruction going on. I'd say destruction, but there's nothing in that area. So luckily, this is all just natural earth processes. Lava shoots out and reforms the open fields underneath it. So that's okay. And back it up overnight as well. We can get some really cool visuals against the dark sky when that lava shoots out. And I thought this was awesome and just wanted to share with everyone. All right, everyone, that's going to be it for me today. Please like and subscribe and tell me if you enjoyed this. We can definitely do it again with kind of the visuals, looking at figures, looking at live streams. Yeah, thanks again for watching. Take care.